Hey everyone, today we're looking at the many bizarre things that have happened in DBD history. There was a time back around the release of Nicolas Cage, but also sometimes before I believe throughout DBD's history, where the trial walls would break. On this occasion though, the trial itself appeared completely differently, with a whole tile of the map instead appearing as this almost untextured red blob, which deleted a part of the outer trial walls, allowing you to leave the map and see outside. I'm not sure if this was ever explained. What's weirder is hooks could actually spawn outside the map, and they'd work perfectly fine too. It was a bizarre bug that didn't last too long. I believe what this probably is it's almost the default tile without any texture or structures on top of it. All of the tiles in the map probably look like this at base, and this is just the one without anything on it. On a similar but slightly stranger note, does anyone remember Pinhead's twin? There was a period of time for the game where a clone of Pinhead began to spawn with him in the trials. You could be running around the map and come across a perfect clone of Pinhead. What was even more bizarre was that he appeared in very odd places, such as in the Midwich Stairs. This happened around May of 2023, and was a bug that apparently occurred due to them incorrectly appearing. They were probably the new body you take over as Pinhead when teleporting, that is typically hidden, as there's a point during a teleport where you're both visible from your teleport point and the point in which you're arriving, and this clone is probably usually under the map somewhere. Therefore there needs to be two models visible. The Pinhead clone was only visible too whenever the box was not being interacted with, so this makes sense too. The one in the Midwich Stairs was maybe clipping through because it might usually hide under there, but it was moved up a bit or something during this bug. Hag Cannon is a bizarre bug that has existed in DBD for a very long time now, and for whatever reason has not been patched out of the game. It's a bug that allows you to shoot yourself out of the trial grounds, or into space, some like to say. This did happen before this bug too in a slightly funnier form, where it would launch you up really high and you'd come back down, where now you simply just stay there and end up disappearing. You do this by standing on top of a hag phantasm, dropping down from a higher elevation. The hag needs to have the scarred hand add-on in order for this to work, and in order for the trap to have collision and therefore support you on top of it. Once you've done this, you'll spin rapidly around and then be fired into the air, stuck in the skybox. It's almost impossible for this to happen in a normal trial, so I imagine this is why it's a very low priority bug to be fixed. The other theory is that it isn't actually a bug, but instead the rumoured third way to escape the trials, which is probably unlikely because you don't actually escape when you do this. You actually just sort of get deleted from existence and remain with your camera fixed onto the skybox. So yeah, it doesn't quite work that way. Maybe it could be tried in 2v8, but then Hag's not in 2v8 and you can't run add-ons as of now. But it'd be interesting to see what would happen if another killer did this. There was a point in DBD history where you could fake vaults. There was an issue with flashlights which allowed you to click just before you vaulted, and it made it appear as if you were going to vault, but then you instead bent to the side. You would go to vault the pallet, click it as you did, and you could then turn in any other direction, moving you away. It looked really janky and broken, but for a time was even considered a tech. It was pretty game breaking though, as there was no real way to actually counter it, and it was very confusing visually as killer. He was actually quite powerful, to be honest. The other bizarre thing pertaining to vaults is that of Sexist Vaults. This is an ongoing issue the game seems to have, and that's vault distance varying between male and female survivors. There's an ongoing issue with female survivor vaults not going as far as they're supposed to, cutting the vault short, giving them less distance after the vault. This can cause issues as it means male survivors are able to get more distance and even clear some trapper trap placements, where female survivors can't. I'm not too sure even why this is happening and why it keeps happening, but it's a phenomena many refer to as sexist vaults, due to how these vaults are reacting based on the characters who use them. There was a point in time in DBD history where you could be an incredibly diligent survivor and actually do more than 5 generators and complete 6 generators, and I believe even more. This one seemed to happen if the last generator got completed while someone else was still working on one. You would be able to continue working on the generator. Nothing would happen, however, when the 6th generator was completed. It would simply complete without a sound. No pop-ups or anything, and it would be as if nothing had changed. I'm not sure if anyone ever managed to complete all 8 available generators, but it would be interesting to see if anything happened if you did. maybe again, the third way to escape was completing all 8 generators of the trial. Maybe there's a secret hidden exit. Years ago, there was a terrifying bug which made survivors become giants. The giant survivor bug, which made survivors appear absolutely huge, eclipsing even buildings and various things, happened I think during a PTB, so at least it wasn't a live release. Not too sure what caused this one, but it seems like maybe it's just the survivor model contorting during various animations. In a later PTB there was a similar bug, and it seemed to happen specifically during moments of a survivor doing an action or something, like them being hooked. A similar thing gets done with killers, I believe, where their bodies are distorted in weird ways to make their animations look normal in first person. This is also why the shadows of killers look so bizarre, and are also very distorted and odd looking. The only question here really being why they became so huge, as well as so twisted and contorted, which has happened plenty throughout the years. These huge models are genuinely terrifying to look at. This also happened with the twins. There was a bug with Victor where he would break somehow when separate from Charlotte, which led to him being stretched across from his location all the way to Charlotte's, also leaving your perspective slightly tilted and a long elongated Victor spanning across your screen. There's been many issues over the years with characters freezing. One you likely remember is Nurse freezing. This happened when she tried to grab someone after blinking. Instead, she just became frozen with her hand outstretched. Quite beautiful, really. It did, however, lead to Nurse getting kill switched for what I believe was over a month's time, which was interesting to say the least. Another one you may remember was with twins, where Victor would get stuck repeatedly trying to unbind from Charlotte, but instead just rebounding back and forth in place, leaving them completely stuck. Really, there's probably just a whole video to be made here on just twins. Bizarre twins happenings, maybe. There was also a freeze that happened apparently specifically for consoles, where you would just literally freeze upon entering a trial, and it was something to do with using the archives prior to a match. So there was a console bug where you just loaded into the game and you would just be frozen. The worst case when the kill switch was needed, I think at least, was the invisible dredge, or lore accurate dredge bug, I suppose you could call it. This bug basically caused Dredge to become entirely invisible. It was quite horrifying too, because all you could hear was Dredge's in-game noises, all those weird crunches and gurgles as it approached you, whilst it was completely invisible. This bug happened when Nightfall was active, and I believe happened due to a weird interaction with lockers. Sometimes when you exited them, you would just become invisible. It was only when Nightfall ended that you got a glimpse of Dredge, but it was only with the red stain appearing, where during Nightfall it would be blocked due to the undetectable status. Back in 2016, you could spawn in trees. Another recurring bug through the years is one where you'd be able to phase through various objects, such as pallets or walls. I think this is down to desync issues possibly, with it happening that you could walk through pallets, but also that invisible walls would spawn, almost like a tile or structure was meant to be in place of where you were walking, but it didn't spawn for one player, leading to a very buggy looking interaction. One of the funniest versions of this though was sort of the inverse of it, where something that isn't meant to interact with the player does. This was the bug that caused fake or dream pallets for Freddy to act like normal pallets. This meant the pallets you replaced as Freddy, the dream versions, simply acted as if they were normal ones and would stun him accordingly, which is pretty rough for him. Merciless Storm, also known as the Telesto of DBD, has had a bunch of weird issues over the years that are all very bizarre. It's a perk that causes a series of difficult skill checks when reaching 90% generator completion. The bugs with this have been various. There was a bug that would cause a missed Merciless Storm skill check to completely regress a generator's entire progress. Then there was a bug following this one which did the same thing except reduced it to around half the generator's progress, which was still too much. The perk is only meant to apply a regular failed skill check regression and block the generator for 20 seconds. The worst one though was the bug that made it so hitting the Merciless Storm skill checks would regress the generator progressively for each skill check hit. It was just incredible to watch, honestly, and it just kept going. Then there was also a bug with it that caused survivors to float within the trial. For that one, I honestly have zero clue at all. The other ones were probably just issues with some kind of regression number or regression effect when hitting these skill checks. I think it was specifically to do with a pairing with Overcharge as well as Huntress Lullaby, but I could be wrong. One bizarre happening that has always been very funny is Wesker bugs. There was one originally that happened in which he would throw someone and they would just remain mid-air, allowing you to float around in a nice reclined position. There's also currently one where Wesker has a bit of a slippery tendril and just seems to sort of lose grip on the survivors, allowing them to move away without issue. This one is also apparently still in the game. Let me know of any weird, bizarre happenings you remember too down below. Thanks, and goodbye.